Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Welcome everyone, my name's Alison Stewart and I'm the FAR CEO and I'm your host for this episode of Cut the Crop. So today we've got Chris Sanders from Corson Maize, which is part of PGG Wrightson and Seed, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about what the opportunities are for growers to grow maize in the South Island. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Alison.
So, is maize a viable economic option for growers in the South Island?
Yeah, no, it certainly is. It's grown throughout the South Island, really, and it's a cash crop that's suitable on a lot of different farming situations.
So what are its geographic limits? Because there's obviously going to be some areas where it's going to be too cold.
So as you get further south, it becomes more risky, but certainly north of Oamaru, it's very successfully grown. There are people further south, but as I said, it does become a bit more risky just with cooler conditions and weather.
Yeah, and are you talking about mainly maize for silage, not grain?
Yeah, in the South Island, it's predominantly maize for silage. There is some maize grain grown up in Marlborough and throughout Canterbury. Our growing season and just conditions, though, would make it hard to be growing grain too far south.
Yeah. So if we just focus on the silage, when would you normally start planting, and how long does the season go?
Yeah, well, maize is dominated by heat units or the growing season, so we need to get it in as early as we can in the South Island, but we need soil temperatures to be around about 10 degrees. So most people are looking sort of late October, 20th of October, and you'd really need to have it in by mid-November at the latest.
And so it would be flowering in January?
Yeah, sort of around that New Year's time is when it's flowering, and then probably grain fills happening throughout February, drying down or maturing during March, and most harvest doesn't start till at least late March and then sort of into April.
Yeah, so clearly growers would have to be thinking well in advance of what the follow-on crop was going to be in order to make sure that they didn't compromise the planting of, say, their autumn sown sort of cereal crops.
Absolutely, yeah. So you have to consider what is going to be following. So if you were intending on putting the paddock down into pasture, well, you'd be wanting it off as early as possible. You do have a bit more flexibility with cereals because you can go to cooler temperatures, but yeah, you have to be mindful of what the following crop is going to be.
So the hybrids that would work best down in the South Island are quite different to the ones in the North Island, or is there some similarity?
Well, they're still maize plants, but they're all compared against an index called CRM, and that's measuring their comparative relative maturity. So it's a number based around 100, and the higher the number is, the higher the yield potential is, but also the longer it takes to reach maturity. So say a hybrid that we'd class as long maturity in the South Island would actually still be grown in the North Island, but it would be a short maturity hybrid in the North Island.
Yeah. So is it a difficult crop to grow? I mean, what are the agronomic challenges, pest diseases, etc.?
Well, really it's quite a simple crop to grow. It's got quite a big seed on it, so that enables you to put seed treatment around it, which will deal with most of the common pests. In the South Island, we don't have so many fungal diseases and things which can affect maize that it does in the North Island. We're relatively lucky in that regard. So with the seed treatment, dealing with one of the key insects, which would be Argentine stem weevil. Other things you have to be a bit cautious of would be slugs, and also cutworm around that establishment time as well. But it's really quite a simple crop to grow. Once you put it in the ground, you're usually just doing one post-emergence herbicide in the South Island. There are pre-emergence herbicides available also, but often in the South Island we're just using a single post-emergence herbicide, some follow-up nitrogen, and then keep the water up to it with irrigation, and there's not too much else that you have to worry about.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're making it sound simple to grow. So why would a grower want to grow it? What's the market opportunities for South Island growers?
Yeah, so it's predominantly used is in the dairy system. So that's where the majority of maize silage goes into, but you can also use it in beef systems, or it's just a really good way to be able to conserve feed for feeding at another part of the year.
So does a grower need to have a contract already sort of signed up before they start planting?
They don't have to, but I would advise it. Just to grow it on the spot market, it's got a fairly short window that it's ready to be harvested, and then being a silage, it's quite heavy, so it really wants to be ensiled where it's going to be fed out is the best option. So having an end user lined up before you plant it is probably advisable, just to make sure that you're not at risk.
Well, that's right. You put all that effort into growing the crop, and then you don't have anyone to buy it at the time that you've harvested. So
I'd certainly advise either talking to dairy farmers around your area. Obviously, you don't want someone too far away because you'll have to transport the finished product to their property, and that all adds to the cost. But talk to your local end users potentially, or else often linking with the contractors. They'll have people approaching them that are looking for maize silage, and so they will be able to help link you up.
And what about any specialist machinery or equipment? I mean, do you need to be going out and buying anything special that a normal arable grower in the South Island wouldn't have?
Well, it is a precision planted crop, so you have maize planters. Most people will get a contractor in to do that also, and then the harvesting of it, you'll need probably to get a contractor in for that, depending on how you're set up on farm. So it is really something that contractors come and do most of the planting, and depending on what machinery you have.
Yeah. So how many hectares are in maize like this last season? I mean, how much is in the South Island? I have to say that driving down south, I saw an awful lot more maize last season than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't really like to put a number on it. I'm not sure of it exactly, but it's certainly something that's probably getting more interest. But it does fluctuate a bit with the payout, the dairy payout, about what people are prepared to pay and to use in their farming systems.
So compared to what else a grower would be growing at that time, in general, is it a viable option?
Yeah, well, it's certainly something that they can grow and then harvest and sell, so it's a good cash crop. Yeah.
So what else do you want to tell us about maize in the South Island that you think that if a grower's sitting there thinking, that sounds like an option, what kind of things would they need to consider?
Yeah, so as we touched on before, the crop that's going to be following is very important, so just thinking about harvesting at the other end, if you go for a too longer maturity hybrid, chasing that top end yield, it is going to be later getting harvested. So you've also got frost to consider, because a frost coming up close to the harvest time, that's not ideal. A lot of the yield and the majority of the goodness is in that cob, and it's the last part to form on the plant, obviously. So a serious frost will impinge what you get out of your quality of your maize. So you don't want to push the boundaries too far as chasing that top end yield. Also, heavy machinery is going to be required for harvesting it, with the harvester and trucks and things like that. So you don't want to be making too much of a mess if it becomes wet early on in the season. So that's something you really have to consider, is when it comes to harvest, having that done in a timely manner.
Yeah. So what's Corson Maize up to then at the moment? Have you got any exciting things coming through?
Oh, we've always got exciting things coming through. So we're trialling a range of hybrids from across the world, really, from a number of large companies. They're giving us hybrids that are suitable for us to look at in New Zealand. We're comparing them with our hybrids and other commercial hybrids in the market, and just choosing what's best for the farmer to grow in all areas throughout the North and South Island. So no, there are some exciting new hybrids coming out. Just finding one that yields in a shorter time period is what we're always after, and also taking attributes like quality and disease resistance and things, and we're screening for all of those factors.
Yes, and hoping that brown marmorated stink bug and fall armyworm don't suddenly sort of establish, because they're clearly the two sort of top priority pests that if they did come into New Zealand in the arable sector, maize would be the crop that probably would be affected the most.
Well, we certainly hope it doesn't arrive.
So, I mean, sort of, from a biosecurity perspective, those two are up near the top for FAR to keep its eye on. Yeah. So is there anything else that you would like to sort of bring out to any of the growers about maize in the South Island?
Not particularly, but if anybody's toying with the idea, I'm always happy to talk through it with them or come and visit them to see whether it would be suitable for what they're doing, and provide them with some further information if they're keen.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, listeners. Very interesting. Let's see whether we can sort of expand our growing of maize in the South Island. So thank you very much, and have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.